Yeah, me too.
Why is that?
Because I didn't. As I said, I forgot, and I didn't have a chance to sit down and work on this stuff. I have quotes, but I would have to try to pull them up on. I have some, but I don't know if I'd step on you guys or not.
Well, you can share yours, and we'll work with it. So.
Because my old notes are the ones that are up there now.
Yeah, we didn't update anything. So. All right, so I have that, and that.
Yeah, people in the chat are giving you a hard time, Jim. I don't know who they are, though.
Someone is giving me a hard time.
Yeah, in the chat.
In the chat, but I don't know who they are, though.
I'll give you a hint. You know, he's wearing a red shirt. You can kill him off if you want.
All right. But can use them. Oh, here we are. Yeah. Loot is not about. Oh, jeez.
Ballast. I couldn't spell it. My phone kept autocorrecting it.
The loot is not a ballast. Oh, okay.
Ballaste?
Actually, if you use enough of them, I bet you.
If you have enough of them, yeah, it'll hold your keel down. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, are we ready?
All right.
Are we ready to go here?
I'm ready.
About as ready as I'm going to get.
Nothing like springing it on Jim. Well, we didn't really spring it on Jim.
No, it's my fault completely.
Yeah, we're not talking.
You're like 3 days into summer and you already are forgetting.
He's like, yeah, what's this summer vacation?
Schedules? I don't even know.
Schedules? Where we're going, we don't need schedules.
Go ahead and count us in when you're ready, Jim.
Okay. Okay, recorder's running. And 3, 2, 1.
Excellent. Are we live on the...
We are live. Look, it says stop broadcast. It's
okay.
we're running.
We're live here. My tablet is a little delayed because...
No.
Like, we're autocorrected to we're.
Yeah, we're. It's a new type of weirding module.
Yeah.
We're.
You wouldn't understand.
Yeah. We're live.
Wow. Ready?
Yep, sure. Bring it.
Welcome to the Dune Saga podcast. I'm David Moulton.
I am Scott Herzog.
And I'm Jim Arrowwood.
And on this episode, we'll be discussing the final book in the original series of Dune. Final book by Frank Herbert, Chapterhouse, Dune.
Chapterhouse Dune, final book in him.
Yeah.
We get one book that's based on notes. It would have been book 7. We get 2 books that were based on notes, but they'll be written, of course, by Kevin J. Anderson and Brian Herbert. So we get that coming up. That's going to be down the pike. Yeah. Before we move into this, we have Ming Lord in the chat room has asked us a question. Have we ever played the Dune RTS? Or here's Dune 2 is his best in his opinion, because there were a couple RTSs. So what's an RTS, David?
It stands for real-time strategy.
Okay.
And for those who might be familiar, it would be like Command and Conquer or the original World of Warcraft before the game that everyone plays now became what it is. It's like you got a little bunch of, you look down on an army and you kind of control them and move them around in real time, which is before this. A lot of the games were turn-based before real-time strategy, and it was like you would take a turn and then the opposing army would move X amount of places and then you get to go again. But this is, you're both doing things at the same time.
So you're playing what, the Fremen and the
Well, I mean, yeah, I thought you were asking about real-time strategies. I haven't actually played the RTS.
All right.
I've seen screenshots of it, though. I think that would be interesting to find someone who's played it and talk to it. I know that Roland gave me a copy of the instruction manual to the board game.
Oh.
But not, I mean,
yeah.
I think it has like even instructions on how to build the board game.
I bet you could find the Dune RTS for free somewhere.
Yeah, I'm sure it's probably got to be out there.
So
It's
dated.
I think it's DOS based too. So.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Fire up your DOS emulator or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, we are talking Chapterhouse tonight, and wow. So what Chapterhouse takes place in the future of? Well, it's continuing along the Golden Path, I guess.
Yeah.
And a little bit of an introduction to it, in case you haven't read Chapterhouse before. It is the Bene Gesserit still find themselves questioning the golden path of humanity set by God Emperor Later II. Now they must survive the honored Montres, whose reckless conquest of the old empire threatens the Bene Gesserit survival. Sisters must reassess their timeless methods. Does ultimate survival go beyond the calculated manipulation? Is there a greater purpose to life than consolidating power?
This one is one of the ones that takes place really quickly after the book before it. And
right. I mean, we aren't jumping. This is very reminiscent of course, Dune, Messiah, and Children of Dune. You know, sequentially following pretty closely.
Mm-hmm. And it was kind of jarring the way just talking about timeline wise. It starts off and it's like almost immediately after, like maybe a couple years.
Right.
But there's enough information that you're missing things. Like the Telex are all gone. They hint at that, and you're like, what? What's going on here? And then it uses the first couple chapters to blast through like 9 years, and that was kind of I don't remember any of the other books speeding you forward that quickly. Instead, usually I feel like Brian and Frank and Kevin they just kind of like they give you a cliffhanger and then boom, you're X amount of years later and they just drop you in. But this is they kind of eased you into it.
Yeah.
Through the eyes of Teg.
Yeah. Which is kind of interesting. Getting it through his perspective. So we often start off with our overall impressions and thoughts as we read through this book. This is not a book. This is not the rating, but this is like, so what did you think? Well, how did this hit us, and so on. And
right.
Do you want to start?
Ready to go? Sure. Of course, in doing something like this, the three of us tend to chit-chat back and forth while we're reading just little blips, and I think that I'm on the different side. I didn't have a problem with this book so much. Like, I thought that the mystery to it was enough to keep going. Like, what happened? Where did they go next? Like, there was such a big, overwhelming problem that it kept me wanting to read and see where things would go. Plus, like, dealing with Duncan, Marbella, and even Teg, just kind of like, how's this all going to work out? How are they going to defeat such a horrible foe? Will the worms come back? That kind of stuff. And even looking back to my original read through, I remember liking this book a lot better than Heretics. But I know that I am in the small group in that one.
Okay.
So, Jim, why don't you take up? Let's hear your thoughts.
Well, no, I'm actually kind of on your side there, David, because
Really?
I like this book a lot better than I thought I would, based on what others said to me when I told them I was reading it, and they said it would be really a difficult read. And yeah, there's places in here where it was hard, but I thought the story was a lot clearer, brought out, and there was a little more of it between the philosophical aspects of the book. I think I liked it a lot better than maybe you thought I did.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I was getting the hint that you thought it was a bit of a tough read to get through. Like you had to push yourself a little bit.
It started out that way, but as time went on, and as you said, I wanted to find out what was happening with Duncan, how Teg was going on. Absolutely fascinated with Mother Superior Dar. I just really liked her, and what direction the Atreides were going in.
Mm-hmm. Ming chimed in, says he listened to the audiobook and must have fallen asleep because doesn't remember Dune being destroyed.
I wanted to comment on this. I think in the last show when we talked about Heretics, at the end of Heretics, they destroyed Dune, but it is not really developed and shown. It's
Right.
kind of done in a very passing way, because I remember getting to the end and I was talking about, I'm like, wait, they destroyed Dune?
Yeah.
And I knew they were replanning and trying to restart Dune in another planet, but didn't necessarily correlate it with any conversation they had. And I don't know if I zoned out during that part of the audio book when I read it or not. But I'm with him on this.
Well, the honored Maters had found Arrakis, and so in order to not lose the spice and the worms and everything, that's when the Bene Gesserit decided to relocate to Chapterhouse, because the honored Maters didn't know where they were or how to find them.
Well, and so are you saying that the Bene Gesserit then were the ones that destroyed Dune to keep it from the hands of the Honored Matras?
No, I don't think they destroyed it. If I recall right, it was more that they were preserving what was left.
Well, I mean, I remember them. Tar wanted them to destroy Dune. I think it was almost like.
But again, I don't think it was very overt.
No.
It was. It certainly wasn't like when the detonations went off that blinded Paul. That was very developed.
Yeah.
And the after effects of that was very clear. But the detonations this time, not nearly as clear as it was in the other books.
I think I wonder, and I feel like it was kind of Frank's way of being like, look at how not important it is anymore. Like, all this time,
that's true.
Dune's been so important, but hey, look, it's not actually the most important thing in the world, in the story anymore. There's more going on here than just the worms and spice.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the same exact thing with the beginning of the story and the Talaxu being wiped out and Skytail being the last one. Like, you're like, I don't know, 50 pages into the book before they even like explain. They say it like, oh, he's the last.
And you're like, what?
Wait, huh? When did this?
What? When did that happen?
And yeah, it's kind of like.
And he has the genes or the DNA of like all the Talaxus that have gone before him, and all these people in him.
Now, which book was Skytail in before? Was it Dune Messiah with the like face dancer and stuff?
Or was he all
Duncan?
Or was he all the way back when we had the first revelation of the Axolotl tanks and the Kevin J. Anderson and Brian Herbert?
Ooh.
Back when they were making the starts with an A, losing it here, but the fake spice they were trying to create. Amal. They were trying to make it the Amal. Yeah.
Well, I saw Roland just popped in the chat. So Roland, figure out where Skytail first made his appearance.
That's right. Yeah, Roland, it's your task.
You're right.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
But they even do mention that we've heard of him, that we've seen him before. So I know that he was at least in one of the other Frank books.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whether he played a prominent role or not.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what was your...
Overall, I loved it. It was my favorite.
Really?
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. This book for me, and I really struggled through this book, and I knew it was bad when I began it and said, in the first half an hour of the book, I said, this is going to be a really tough read. Like I knew, and so I felt like I went in negative, which I don't like doing for a book, because I realized there were certainly some storylines that really redeemed me in the book. I loved Duncan. Hate that all we got of Duncan was him confined to this frickin' ship. He never stepped foot out of it. That bothered me a little bit. I did find the Mother Superior kind of interesting. I wish there was more Shiana in it. Mm-hmm. I felt like that was very minimalized, but it felt like she was somehow integral. Obviously, if Frank was planning on writing the sequel to this one, I'm sure she would have played a lot more into it, but we didn't get that, at least from Frank. See, we're on a first name basis, me and Frank. We go way back.
Way tight.
But yeah, and so I guess it was not my favorite book. I had some problems with the structure on it. I did like the way the Honor Matras and the and the Bene Gesserit are kind of meshed in the end.
Mm-hmm.
But there were some parts I felt like I was just basically wading my way through philosophical discussions on everything.
Yeah. I mean, well, before we go too far, Roland says Dune Messiah, Skytail was in the conspiracy against Paul.
Okay, yeah, that one that we're kind of interested. Well, that makes sense why I don't like this book either, because it was Dune Messiah, right?
Yeah.
So.
I mean, this book feels like a middle book. First time I kept reading about similarly how people were talking to Jim, how I wasn't gonna like it, how it was a tough read, and it ends on this cliffhang and stuff, and it's bad. And I remember when I finished it the first time, I thought to myself, I wish people wouldn't have told me that it was a cliffhanger, because to me it felt like a solid science fiction ending. Because, like, I mean, you watch Twilight Zone or any of those kind of things, and they end on that kind of like ambiguous note, where okay, I mean, like, what now? But
what?
Like the problem's over, but I mean, everything's not solved. Type of thing. Same thing with the Ender Game movie, right?
Yeah.
Like, I like the Ender Game movie. It's obviously not finished, but I'm totally fine with the way it ends.
I don't know. I mean, I had some problems with the way it ended. It felt very like, okay, how do we end this book? Well, let's have Duncan and Shiana and the Talaxu guy that's shut up in the ship, and let's go riding off into the sunset with these three, and that's it.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, you've been stuck. You've had these guys contained in the ship all freaking book, and then you're going to end with them flying off into the sunset, escaping, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I felt very much. I felt like crap. That's a terrible ending for me.
I don't know. It didn't bother me.
Yeah. Anyway, that's sorry.
Did it bother you, Jim?
Not really, because David, I think it's you that pointed out to me that it seemed like a middle book of a trilogy, and so that's kind of the point of view I approached it from, realizing that the third book in the trilogy would not come from Frank because of circumstances. So
yeah, I'm yeah.
What about let's talk about, before we move into characters and stuff, let's talk about how we feel about Frank's writing style changing. Did you feel you got a grasp, like, knowing what we know from reading about things and our discussion with Brian, and just what was going on in Frank's life? Beverly was dying. He was writing this book in parts while going through the move from Hawaii to Washington, then his impending demise. I mean, did you get the sense of in the writing? To me, that's why it felt so thick. Like, unlike the other books where it starts off thick, kind of spreads a little thinner because he just kept writing. This one felt like he kept coming in with renewed energy to keep throwing at the difficult concepts at you.
Jim, what do you think?
I agree. As time went on and we got further along in the Frank Herbert books, I found them more difficult to read in the middle, and then they started to get easier again. I think the thing that impressed me the most, or I should say made the biggest impression, was the escalation in these last two books of how much sex played a role in everything.
Yeah, seriously.
I mean, that was always something that was through the books, but it was more of it wasn't as prominent, it wasn't as graphically described as it became in these last two books.
What do you think that means about his mental state, or where he was?
He was a frustrated man.
He was a frustrated man. I mean, yeah, maybe.
No,
I mean, just to be serious about it, I mean, maybe that could have been totally what was going on. It's very weird to me that it just, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think there's something that's outside of Frank that's also playing a part in this. If you look at when Dune was first published, what, mid-'60s? Is that correct?
something like that. Yeah.
So mid-'60s, and these books coming out in the mid-'80s. Look at the way society had changed and what became acceptable in publishing
Okay.
and what you were allowed to publish. I mean, I remember, Harlan Ellison writing stories, his Dangerous Visions anthology that really threw out some of the most risque and most volatile short stories of the time in the mid-'70s. And these were hailed as being kind of almost heretical in the sci-fi community because they were so cutting edge and flying in the face of what was acceptable in society. By the 80s, we kind of loosened the reins, and you began to see a lot more of this sort of writing in literature. And so it may have also just kind of allowed him to saying, well, I can write this out now and still have this book become a #2 bestseller and not worry about it. Because that's kind of what Chapterhouse ended up being #2 in the New York Times bestseller list for a while, and then before it began to eke its way down. So I mean, it's. I think we're also looking at a 25-year shift from when the first book came out and how this one was received.
That's a good point too. I hadn't really thought about that.
But I mean, the honor mantras. I mean, sex was such a core ingredient to their domination and their enslavement of humanity and the way they manipulated it.
Do you think that theme was a social commentary on the 70s? And pop culture in the 70s?
Bump Jim.
Bump Jim.
Okay, I think that it was a little more of an extension of what the Bene Gesserit had already been doing. I mean, through their breeding program, I mean, way back at the beginning, what happened with Baron Harkonnen? He was manipulated, and then he mistreated Mohiam, and she got him back. So I just think it was kind of like hyper Bene Gesserit kind of thing.
So you're saying that because the Honor Mantras obviously are a diverging group of the Bene Gesserits, that this is the Bene Gesserits in a sense unrestrained, without any sort of moral restraint, or them taking their breeding program or whatnot to the nth level, and this is kind of so when the two groups meet, we have one that's kind of held back from this and kept away and realized the destructiveness of this, and one group that hasn't.
Yeah, they've gone beyond, way beyond.
Ming Lord agrees with you here in the chat room, saying, just an extension of the female power started with the Bene Gesserit. More so, with the knowledge that we have now, it seems the logical conclusion of the sorceresses of Rossack. Rather than the Bene Gesserit seems like an uncanny extreme of the sorceresses, where the honored matrix seems like a more realistic outcome because of greed and power. And maybe other memory is what keeps the greed and power in check.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like the way Ming Lord says they just do it in one level. The honor mantras are just kind of, it's just the sex level, but the Bene Gesserits are doing this on multiple levels.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And Duncan sees through all this crap.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't keep him from being trapped by it, but with Marbella.
Well, willingly.
Yeah.
Willingly trapped, and but not so that he doesn't escape.
Well, that was a mutual kind of thing, wasn't it, between the two of them? I mean,
I don't know how trapped he was. I mean, he trapped her too.
Well, I think they were mutually hooked into each other.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, definitely there's the emphasis on the difficulty of their separation. The wanting to bring her along, the wanting to stay with her.
All I know, David, if you start humming at me, I'm out of here.
Oh boy. Well, let's go switch into characters here.
Characters?
Yeah.
All right. We can talk characters here. Who you want to talk about first?
Well, I mean, we're talking about Duncan.
Let's talk about Duncan.
Yeah.
Duncan, one of my hands down, one of my favorite characters in this book.
Oh yeah.
You know, as we went through the Herbert books, and really even a good portion of the Kevin D. Anderson and Brian Herbert books, there's been one constant, and that constant has been Duncan. And despite the fact that we're getting Gola Duncans and sometimes Duncans that are a bit more emotional than others, he is the one thing that has helped put me back into the Dune universe time and time again when we jump 3,000, 4,000, 10,000 years into the future. There's still Duncan.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And so whenever we get Duncan and we are getting, and when he's introduced, I'm like, I feel just a little bit home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we've had him since House of Atreides.
Yeah.
He's been around. And it's like, who's the real star of the series? It's Duncan.
People say Paul, people say Jessica or Leto the second, but honestly, Duncan does feel maybe not star, but core character. He holds it and ties the novels together.
I wonder if that was an intended tool. So
yeah, maybe.
Thoughts on Duncan, Jim?
Yeah, as Scott says, he was an absolute constant. I liked him way better in the beginning when he was being trained and when he was a warrior, but he kind of lost that along the way, and he became more of a tool for the Atreides, and not even as a warrior, just kind of a whipping boy.
Yeah.
And you see that even in this book. I'm really hoping in the sequels that follow this, which I haven't read yet, but when we get there, that we see him kind of rise to this Swordmaster Duncan that we were first introduced to. There was something noble about him fighting for honor and for integrity and for protection, and really doing it for the Atreides, but not being used.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the way that his memory is different from other memory, and how he taunts that in front of the Bene Gesserit, where they have this. They have to be careful about remembering the past, or they'll be trapped by it, and these other lives that want to take over him. And he's just like, to me, it's just one long life. And the deaths are just things that happened along the path, like bumps in the road. It's just one memory, not like different people.
Yeah, we could call death bump in the road.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So, yeah. All right. Other notable characters to mention here. So we had. Let's talk about Odrade. That's how you say her name.
And that is the
Mother Superior.
Mother. I loved her. She was conniving, manipulative, and totally playing the other sisterhood into her hand. I liked her a lot. She was one of my favorite. And who was her foil? Jim, do you remember her name? The one that always kind of came against her and finally came onto her side by the end?
Belanda.
Oh, Belanda. I love Belanda too. You know, they kind of were opposite, and by the end, she's kind of reluctantly right there. You know, Duncan kind of turns her to him, and their relationship, and yeah, that was a good storyline.
I like the scene where she sits in the lunchroom with the acolytes.
Oh yeah.
And she's kind of like going over her thoughts, and the girl's next to her. She knows she wants to ask something, and she's like, "Well, will she be able? Will she take the step to talk to me? Like, they never do, but will she?" Kind of thing. I really liked that kind of aspect.
Did you guys feel the same way I did, that Belanda felt that perhaps Dar was a bit too liberal and kind of wanted to take over a little bit?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I also felt that Belanda represented the stagnation within the sisters.
No, I would agree with that.
They always mentioned how she was more plump and kind of, I don't know, set in her ways. And that kind of stuff.
But you see that change. I mean, she loses weight later on, and that coincides with what mentally is happening. And you kind of, wow, later the second's golden path really begins to play out here, because as we get toward the end, we realize that the joining of these two is kind of part of that plan. And Udrade sees this, and Belanda comes and realizes it and understands it and keeps it quiet. It's and that's pretty amazing transformation that we have.
And Marbella was the perfect tool for it too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
there's no doubt. I loved their interaction, and I loved the way a character that you saw transform maybe the most. There were a couple, but certainly Belanda would be one that kind of transforms into that. What do you guys think of the Spider Queen?
Go ahead, Jim. You can start off.
Well, I don't know. She just rigid, unbending. I'm in charge, and the rest of you can go fly a kite, and I'm invincible. And we found out, of course, that she wasn't invincible.
Boy, and that scene kind of took me by surprise too, when the underling poisons her, and just like that, it's like, whoa. It's just, and it was so out of left field, and so it was almost a testament that those people that think they're invincible, it wasn't like some dramatic thing that took her down. It was some
little tiny
thing that just kind of wiped her out.
But at the beginning of the book, she kind of foreshadows that fact, saying that she let her in. She's let this person in, and she knows this person will be the one to do her in. I think either the what's her name who takes over or the Spider Queen, one of them thinks in dialogue in their head, poison. I wonder if poison will be what to use.
So it's a little bit of foreshadowing, is what you're saying.
Yeah, foreshadowing. There you go.
Yeah. So what'd you think of?
Man, she was ruthless. Especially, I mean, what was her thing with the futars? They're just kind of like. And I feel like those things were off to the side and not explored quite enough.
Yeah, they're almost like chair dogs.
Yeah,
a little bit like the chair dogs. But you have them in here. They're animals that have somehow gained human speech, or humans that have devolved into these creatures.
Talaxu made them.
Right.
They're like half human, half animal.
Yeah. So I mean, it's really it is kind of hard to say, but somehow the one chick that's imprisoned there kind of wins him to her side, and then gets killed by the Spider Queen. But the Futa remember and don't really forgive the Spider Queen.
Right.
And as a part of this, and that there's this nice lady.
Yeah, the other thing about the Honored Matrix is for a group, so who controls by sex, they just don't paint themselves as attractive women to me. Like they even when they're described, like they're just like they sound like picture that I have in my head is like the starving kids on those like Africa things. Like that's what I imagine them being, just like so trim, so like bony and everything. I don't know. That's the vision that I get from them. And that's why I'm just kind of, she's just gross on so many levels to me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, it's I guess you don't need to be attractive when you can hum. Seriously.
Yeah.
You can control someone by humming. I mean, it doesn't matter how you look.
No, I guess not.
And I agree, Ming Lord. I listen to these books on audio, and they do come off as being kind of creepy, even though there is something kind of endearing in them a little bit later on. So I would agree with that. The way they're read, and
I wish we would have been able to see their brutality a little bit more, because they were created to hunt the Honored Matrix.
Right.
And
but we don't want to really see that.
You don't want to see it.
No, we don't ever really see it.
No, we don't ever see it. That would have been interesting to at least have gotten a glimpse of that. The only other time we really saw them in a strong sense is in the previous book, when is it Lucilla? Someone who's on Gamu,
Okay.
and she's in the streets, and she's like, "What is this thing?" And she's, "Oh, that's a futar sent here to hunt the 100 Majors," and she's disguised as a 100 Major.
They don't have any correlation or relationship to the wolves that were hunting the group that infiltrated Latos II's castle and were running at the beginning of God Emperor.
That's a good connection. I never thought of that, but I have no clue.
Yeah, I don't either. Because they seemed highly intelligent too, but I don't know. Maybe no correlation at all. So who else? Let's pick out some other characters. How about with Shiana?
Yeah.
So
you like her? Go
I do like her, but she wasn't in near enough. I mean, she's stuck out in the desert somewhere. We see her a blip in time at the actual house, and then they go out and visit her in the desert, and then at the end they figured out that she actually has done the forbidden or gone in and manipulated the matter and everything else that she's done, and they're kind of appalled by it, but we don't really get a heck of a lot. She's more talked about.
Right, yeah, she's definitely more talked about.
And she was one of the things I really liked about Heretics.
Really?
Her unbridled, innocent, controlling the worms and manipulating the Bene Gesserit.
Interesting. I found her annoying.
Jim, what did you think of Shiana?
You found her interesting, you found her annoying, and I kind of found her just kind of there.
Well, in this book...
Until the end, when it's obvious she is going to become Mother Superior at some point.
Well, I mean...
And, she sure rose through the ranks in a hurry, let me tell you.
But Merbella is Mother Superior.
Right now.
Yeah.
True.
Remember that Shiana and Duncan and what's-his-face went riding off into the sunset in their horses, and that's it.
And all the Jews. I
thought you were making a joke at first, but I forget.
No, literally all the Jews.
But I want to tell you something here. That was something that threw me when we went. So we had nothing throughout Frank's books at all, and suddenly here in this book, the Jews appear, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
We had this rabbi, and I'm like, this is. I mean, I realized that we had the Orange Catholic Bible, so it's not like religion was totally devoid. But the Orange Catholic Bible seems to be kind of gone by the wayside. No one's really talking about it anymore.
Right.
But suddenly the Jews pop up. And not only that, but they're kind of this secret society that has this real... They almost become like Freemason-like, a little bit.
So secretive. I was surprised by that as well. Even through the second time reading, I forgot about them completely. I was just like, what?
I was like, what? Wait, what? Jim, your thoughts on the Jews in the book?
Well, again, out of left field, I didn't know what was going on there, but okay, that's fine. I guess they're here, and the rabbi is there. And, yeah, I think he was just, or they were just there. They needed a label of some kind. And... Gosh, I'll tell you what, I really don't know what to think. It was just weird.
Yeah, I agree with what Ming Lord says. He goes, the rabbi is a little bit creepy of a character. He comes in, he almost represents like, you don't change the old ways. You do it this way, you do it this way, and then, but his daughter, who has gone through the spice transformation, and now has a Bene Gesserit living inside of her through the memories, this is creeping him out. This is like a departure of the old way. And but his staunchness and his unwillingness to bend is certainly a bit spooky.
If the rabbi had been painted any other way than that kind of conservatism, I would have discounted the entire thing as crap.
Yeah. Well, and he does come off very orthodox, and so.
Yeah.
I did not feel. Ming Lord said it's kind of unrealistic, but I'm not really buying the unrealistic thing. Certainly, it functions as a counterpart and a foil to the other. I like the word foil tonight. The foil to the daughter and how different she is, and that contrasts ability, and yet in the midst of it, he sees a need and helps her.
Yeah.
So it's not like He goes, "This is where I'm at. I'm uncomfortable with, but I'm going to help you."
I don't think she was actually his daughter, though.
Wasn't it his daughter?
I think
thought
he
it was
just called her, like,
daughter,
like he was a rabbi.
like daughter of Adam, daughter.
Yeah,
Of, yeah, it's one of those things, maybe.
That's it. But I mean, I could be wrong. But Ryan White says, a rabbi, a wild reverend mother, and a menta walk into a bar.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm with you on the unrealistic thing. I don't think that he was unrealistic. Improbable is more likely.
Yeah, well, he comes again because we have so little mention. I know Roland said they were mentioned in the Legend books. I don't remember them in the Legend books, but because of how unreal, because it kind of comes out of left field, it was like, where in the heck did these Jews come from?
Yeah.
It was more of that.
Right. Ryan also says that the Jews reminded him of the original Fremen, Ishmael, and them searching for their home like Israel.
Okay. Yeah.
I see that too. I had always read the Legends books as what do they call themselves? The Islamic type of sect. In my mind, that like futuristic religion was born out of Judaism, like a combination of Judaism and other things. That's how I always viewed it. So I agree.
Yeah. So who else do we have that we should be talking about? We didn't talk about Maybella, did we?
I mean, we kind of did.
Yeah, roundabout.
Pretty cool.
Tag. We didn't talk about Tag.
Oh yeah. Oh, someone else can start on this one.
Tag. Jim, you're on. Tag. Tell me about Tag.
I'll tell you what. This is the probably the storyline I was anticipating enjoying the most, and it was probably the one that appalled me the most.
What appalled you about Tag's storyline?
Well, he's an 11-year-old boy, and he is going to be. His memories are supposed to be awakened, and apparently Duncan wasn't doing it fast enough, and we get a scene that I would say would probably lose us our jobs.
Well, there's no doubt, Jim, you and I, we would not be teachers anymore if this happened. Yeah, there's no doubt. It's creepy when you think about it. If you think about it as being the adult Tag being awakened, it's not creepy. But if you think about it being the 11-year-old Tag, holy Hannah, this is pedophilia.
I know.
Yeah,
I guess it really is how you look at it. I mean, at the end, he's not a kid anymore.
No. But even that's creepy. I mean, he's riding on the shoulders of the Bene Gesserit because he's so small, and he's commanding the armies. I don't know. The ending, the way Tag ends is kind of anticlimactic for me too.
Well, Maymore says it's his role in the next two books that he has more of a problem with, but getting ahead of things.
And don't spoil it, because I didn't read the other two books.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jim. It was kind of an appalling transformation.
Yeah.
It seemed like everything that we spent the last book fighting for Duncan to avoid, and like, oh, will he escape it? They just throw Tag right in and just like, well, you're getting it.
Yeah. I think the other thing with Tag that is interesting, Tag was my favorite character in the Heretics books, or one of them. Like the fact that he gained this like insane speed, absolutely phenomenal. Loved it.
Yeah.
I wanted more of that in this book, and you didn't really develop it, or really didn't see much of it.
Just seeing the no ship thing, which came out of left field because that wasn't really a thing in the other book. It's just like, oh, let's tack on this power at the beginning of, the very first couple chapters they mentioned. Could he see the no ships? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
But it's like, well, I didn't get that impression from the last book, but sure.
Yeah. Well, how about favorite points of plot? Let's talk about that. We may have tied some of that into some of our discussions of characters, but what are some points of plot that stuck out to you that you really enjoyed, the scene, the dialogue, or the way things came out?
Jim.
Oh, wow. I would just have to say the preparations that the Bene Gesserit were making to try to keep from or make themselves ready for an attack from the Honored Maiders, and then finally coming around later on to saying, okay, we need to launch a preemptive strike here, because if we sit back and wait, we're going to be in big trouble.
Right.
And that was kind of that kind of summed up the whole book for me.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I think that was probably that planning to strike was crucial, and then seeing them actually carry it out was kind of fascinating. On all the levels, the day Drake, when she actually goes and meets with the Spider Queen, to the actual launching of the attack with Tag and the way they attack at that end. Man, the Cymex, the introduction of the Cymex again, the robot driver of the ship that blows up the ship there.
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of it's kind of like a Cymex, right? Because it's the memories of the Bene Gesserit, right?
Right.
Kind of our cyborg, at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think he was more of a cyborg. I don't think he was a Cymex.
No, I agree. I agree. That's why I
kind of the same way they put Romber back together.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get a little bit of a hint of that.
Yeah.
But that kind of skirts. They talk about how that skirts on the, the whole jihad, the Butlerian jihad, and what was put into place to kind of avoid it. How they're kind of skirting the line here.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, the Ixians have been skirting that line with the ships
for ages
that drive themselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, these last two books, it doesn't seem that it has been an issue whatsoever.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're moving toward something in the last two books. So
could be. I mean,
don't give me that. Don't give me that could be crap, David. No, could be.
Yeah. For me, I mean, I think I liked the smaller stuff almost better. Just like I said, the conversation with Odrade in the room, the cafeteria. I really liked the point of Chapterhouse's change, and like how they kept driving home, people watching their planet change, and how they wanted it, but at the same time, they were losing what they loved about the place. And what they had worked so hard to make about the place.
Yeah.
So I found that to be one of my favorite subplot points in it.
In one way, we never saw Dune really transform into Dune. We only saw it kind of over time transfer out of being the sandy place that it was. And here we're seeing that reverse transformation. Mm-hmm. And so like when she says, okay, dry up the sea, and that command, and that stuff's coming and changing fast. It's that is kind of cool, and I do like that.
Yeah.
I think one of the other plot points I really liked was something that happened really over the course of the book, and that was the way you saw Duncan playing the eyes, the calm eyes that kept watching them, mm-hmm. and yet you knew that he was also plotting something beyond. And it brings you up to the end. I know I complained about the end and how it's kind of the kind of the convenient end. Let's go have the guy and the girl and the Talaxu go riding off into the sunset, and it's this convenient ending. But it's not totally thrown out of left field, because we get the idea that Duncan's been plotting the whole way along, and I was kind of, because I love Duncan, I was like, okay, where's this going to lead? How's this going to play out?
Yeah.
So I was I was grateful for that.
And on top of that, you got the whole mystery of is he imagining those people talking, or are they there?
Yeah, who are those people we keep seeing and standing in the garden?
Right. Yeah. You don't know, do you?
No.
Okay.
Do you?
Hey,
shut up, David. I don't want to talk to you.
Are they part of his imagination? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is it his inner Jim talking to him?
No, maybe it's Norma Semba.
Oh,
I'm just kidding. I don't know.
Could be.
I like Norma Semba. She was one of my favorite female characters.
So, to sidetrack here, I got a friend of mine into reading Dune. She's been hearing you talk about it and seeing you read it. And I said, borrow Butlerian jihad. She's going on about how she likes this character and that character. She's like, you know what? Looking back, I really think Norma is one of my highlights for the Legends.
I do
series.
like Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
anyway.
Yeah. Any other characters? Any other plot points you want to pull out that you kind of pull out that you
I think
like?
I'm good. Jim?
Yeah.
No, I'm fine.
All right.
He
Well,
doesn't want to talk to you anymore.
he doesn't. He's like, heck with that. Any themes do we need to talk about, like the golden path? We talked about sex being a tool here. That's obviously continuing to.
Roland expresses in the chat room that he bugged him that they didn't explore those people further.
Yeah, the people, the two that Duncan kept seeing in his vision.
Yeah.
So we get the idea of the golden path, even though it's not inherently mentioned. That's obviously the way they're traveling.
Yeah.
Toward it.
We get another opinion of what is the what is the golden path saving us from? Addiction, stagnation, eradication via incest? What's the word for that? I can't remember. But,
and we also get a little bit of the whole Kwisatz Haderach, Tag and Duncan saying, well, we don't want to stray over to this side, or we're going to be labeled and so they're making themselves very clear that they are not the Kwisatz Haderach.
Right. I know back when I used to be saying, well, who's the real Kwisatz Haderach? Because, they say that at first you think it's Paul, and then you really think, well, maybe it's Leto the Second. With what he does, maybe he's the real Kwisatz Haderach. And then in my opinion, it's really this version of Duncan is the Kwisatz Haderach. Because he's the only one that has the real... Both of the others have the Bene Gesserit problem of the memory being a conglomerate of
but
other
he
people.
Sees all.
But for him, it's his memory because he has memory length actually experiencing those things. And it's not a matter of being taken over by his memory.
Okay.
So,
I can buy that. Jim, any thoughts on that?
No, not really. The Kwisatz Haderach, I thought they were trying to avoid creating another one.
Yeah,
because the Kwisatz Haderach was that person who could look into the areas of a person's psyche that nobody else would want to see.
Yeah. Or they had so much knowledge of what was that they could see all of the options of what could be.
Right. And that was Paul, of course, who could do that. And to a degree, I think Leto the Second. But I didn't feel like Duncan was.
Really?
Not really.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Duncan, I think, was being kept as breeding stock.
Well, I think all the other Duncans, this Duncan, this one I feel is a Kwisatz Haderach.
Yeah.
But
I just didn't get the magical sense with Duncan that at any point that I did with Paul or even Leto the Second.
There's definitely something magical when you look back on it about Paul. There's just we get him from innocence to knowledge to falling to redemption. You get the whole thing, and he's much more of a Christ figure and a fallen figure, and there's something redemptive. I do like Paul as a Kwisatz Haderach probably the best, even above Leto the Second. Because I think Leto the Second just becomes...
He has too much purpose.
Yeah, he's too much purpose, and you don't get that with Paul. Yeah, but maybe that's more of a cosmetic character. Anyways, go ahead.
I just thought that as these books from Frank Herbert went along, they just got heavier and heavier and more complicated and more complicated. And I just kind of started to miss the storytelling.
Yeah.
You know, the heroes, Duke Leto and Jessica and Paul and Gurney, you know, those guys were just huge, bigger than life. In the later books, that just wasn't there. There were no heroes. There were no villains. Everybody was just kind of normal.
Yeah, and I agree. I'm missing that. I'm hoping that we get a little bit of a return to that when we get to the next two books.
Which brings the big question that will either make or break us as people, as human beings in this world.
Yes.
Are you looking forward to leaving Frank Herbert behind and moving back into the world that Kevin J. Anderson and Brian Herbert create?
Yes. Absolutely. Okay. And I do like Frank. It was a jolt going into Frank, and it'll probably be a jolt coming back out of Frank. But I did like what Frank had, but I'm ready to get into some.
But you miss Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson's writing.
I do.
See, you know what? First 4 books, no. After these 2 books, I definitely am in the same boat. I'm ready to go back with open arms and no inhibitions into the Kevin J. Anderson and Brian Herbert. Jim, where do you stand, and what do you think that people will judge you by?
Oh, well, I'm sure everybody's going to say that I'm just really pedestrian and I'm not smart enough to understand Frank Herbert or whatever, and I don't really care. I am just looking forward to Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson's storytelling, because that's what I'm reading for. If I want to be taught, if I want philosophy, I'll go read Socrates.
Well, and there's no doubt that you get the philosophy, and there's nothing wrong with that in the Herbert books. And I think it's one of the things that drew people to these books. But when you wallow in these books, consistently,
yeah,
it's
overwhelming.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. We've been reading them so steadily that it has a lot more of an effect on us than how many years were in between these before. I mean, it was probably more of a.
If you're reading as these books come out, I mean, you're looking at 3, 4, 5 years between them.
You were probably more hungry for this to get this information.
Yeah, and so I mean, I understand. Like Ming Lord's like, oh no, the whole Vader cry, insert Vader cry here. I understand that sentiment. We're coming out and there's people that are diehard and love these, but for me, it's just not that same love affair with it. And maybe that's partly because we tasted the other side before we read the original.
Right.
So.
Well, I'll tell you what. After working on a degree, and then working on my undergraduate degree, and then working on a graduate degree, I'm tired of heavy reading. I just want to enjoy what I'm reading. I want to have fun.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So just a couple comments on some things in the chat room that they're saying that kind of some of it plays into this. We talked a little bit about the Golden Path. Apparently, Frank explains the Golden Path in the recording.
Yeah, I'd like to
hear that. Bridget Rethgear, if you can tell us what recording that is, I would love to get my hands on it. So if you can let us know that. And Ming Lord said the Golden Path sounds like a Chinese restaurant. The Golden Path. But I did like what Ryan White said. He goes, the Golden Path is like a very Jungian sort of collective unconsciousness and everything else unseen and unknown. And that's kind of important. He agrees with us in the storytelling, but he thinks that books 7 and 8 are just drawn out too long. So, and I don't know. I can't judge that, so don't spoil it.
It's interesting, though, because I know when we read the in-between books, we wanted to get right back in. When we were reading the Heroes,
oh yeah,
we wanted to jump right back into Frank. We were like, I don't want this. What's going on? Like,
some of that was the way they were split. Like we had a past and a present,
Right. If I remember correctly, we won't have that issue.
Yeah.
Moving forward, so.
Yeah.
We'll see. So, where are we now? What else?
Well, any other thoughts in this? Are we good?
I think I'm good.
All right. Well, let's move into some quotes. Do you have any quotes?
Not off the top of my head.
How about you, Jim? Do you have any quotes?
I'm sorry, I'm totally unprepared.
Tell you what,
I have two.
Quotes. We can do quotes in listener feedback.
But I have two. So we can do it. Do you want to do listener feedback?
Yeah, we'll just start listener feedback off. Because we'll have a 10-minute break. I'll get mine together.
All right, yeah, that sounds
Jim
good.
Get his together.
All right, so we're going to hold off in quotes till the listener feedback. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So I guess that brings us up to what ratings? Like, how do we rate this book?
Yeah.
We don't have any poll this month, do we?
No.
No poll. We kind of dropped the poll, but that's fine. That sounds bad. Drop the poll. So tell me, so how did you end up ranking this book out of 5 stars? Let's start with you, David.
I am going to. I'm going to give it a 3.9 because I don't want to give it a 4, but it wasn't a 3 to me. It was just almost a 4 because, and part of this might be my memory of reading it before and enjoying it then. Probably a little bit more than I did now. Just it was the mystery. Who are those people that he keeps seeing in his vision, and learning about the Talaxu just in general in this part. Just I really liked that part. I mean, that was really what kept me going before Skytail and all that stuff. So it's I'm going to give it a 3.9 and settle with that.
All right, sounds good. How about you, Jim?
I'm going to call it a straight 4 because I really did enjoy the story. And I had a lot easier time picking the story out of all of the other stuff.
Okay.
Okay. It's going to be a 3.25 for me.
3.25.
Yeah. I don't know if that's the lowest rating I gave.
I don't know.
Maybe Roland.
Roland probably has.
He probably has it on
Yeah.
I don't know, chart here. What did they rate about?
Call that up pretty quick.
Maybe I rated some of the others lower, but this one, just it was a good halfway to 3/4 before I really got into the book.
You said to me over dinner, this book redeemed Dune Messiah to you.
Well, it did. It did. I like Dune Messiah better than I like this book.
So whatever you gave Dune Messiah, this better.
It better be lower because that's why I don't remember. I don't remember. Roland, what did I give Dune Messiah? I don't remember what I gave Dune Messiah. That's like it wasn't absolutely horsepucky. All right, yeah. I liked. It was good.
3.25 also.
Oh, see, I'm changing this. This is a 3, a flat 3 because it has to be lower than Dune Messiah. Because but understand that it's redeemed it. That means that if I were to go back and re-rate Dune Messiah, I'd probably rate it higher based on my reading of this book.
Like a 3.5.
Yeah, 3.5. so because it bridges better. The story is more solid in Dune Messiah than we have here.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at. I'm sticking to it.
Yeah.
Sucks to suppose you guys put in a 4. Jeez.
3.9, thank you.
Okay, got it. 3.
It was just shy.
Thank you, Roland, for mentioning that. And we do have a link that we will throw up into our post of this episode that Bridget Rethgier actually identified. He gave us a link to the recording where Frank talks about the Golden Path. Thank you for finding that, by the way.
Yeah,
really
thanks.
Appreciate it. Well, so what are we looking forward to as we move into the next book? Is this Sandworms? Or is it the Hunters? Hunters of Hunters. I'm talking Hunters. But Hunters of Dune. So what are we looking at here? What are we looking forward to? What do we want to see happen?
Me?
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to see Duncan and Teg working together on a peer-to-peer level, like they should be. That cool, right? Yeah, he's on the no ship with them, right?
No, Teg's not. Is Teg on the no ship?
No.
I don't think Teg's there.
Never mind.
Jim, you there?
I just want to see Duncan. I just want to see Duncan doing his thing some more with Shiana on the ship.
Yeah. How about you, Jim? What are you looking forward to as we go into Hunters of Dune?
You know, at this point, I don't really even know what to expect coming up. Just no clue whatsoever. I'm wide open to whatever direction we're going to go in.
Really?
Okay, for me, it's the Duncan storyline continually that I'm looking forward to. Okay, they went riding off into the sunset. What's happening next? What's going to happen there? I'm also very interested in finding out what the Honor Matris are running from. Because there's this darkness that we got a hint of one of the books earlier that's out there. And what is this thing that's pursuing them, driving them back in toward the core? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. Roland says Teg is on the no ship. So yes,
Okay.
I go back to my original
There you go.
gut feeling.
Yeah. Well, I like how Ryan Wright says it's called Tunkin. their
Tunkin.
bromance name. Tag and Duncan together. Tunkin. Oh. Well, very good. Well, I believe that about does it for the show. Are we missing anything? We covered it. We covered it. We did okay. So, as we do this, if you want to give us your thoughts in writing about Chapterhouse or about the upcoming books, Hunters of Dune, you can do that a couple of different ways. Do you remember how they can do that?
Oh, I sure do. They can hit us on Facebook, facebook.com/Dune Saga Podcast. We're on Twitter at Dune Saga Podcast, of course. You can email us, which is the best way, at dunesagapodcast@gmail.com.
You can pop in an audio file into that email, and we'll play it on the show. We love to do that as well. You can also call in. I think you can still call in. I haven't tested this chat number for a while, so maybe I should. But it used to be you could call in at 1-260-577-CHAT, and that's 1-260-577-2428. And again, other ways that are many that are good for you to get a hold of us as well. Yeah. But I believe that's about it.
Yeah. Oh, one final thing. I can't remember her name offhand, but something I did in the last 2 weeks that was months and months and months coming was I finally mailed out the books people won
okay.
a bajillion years ago.
Oh,
Ryan was one of them, and I think Rick got one. But the third one, a lady had won, and she never got her address to me.
So we need.
If you're listening and you remember that you were the one who won, please send me your address. I guess if we don't get it by the next time, I guess maybe I'll give it out to someone else.
Yeah, and thank you so much for our Patreon supporters that continue to help bring this podcast to life and help us fund some of the costs of running the podcast.
Patreon.com/Dune Saga Podcast.
Links on our main page as well.
Well, actually, you can search us on Patreon. For whatever reason, the link, although it points at the right address, it takes you to the main Patreon page.
I'm not sure what's going on there, but
I've looked at it. So,
Yep. All right. Well, I believe that's about it.
So for the Dune Saga Podcast, I'm David Moulton.
I'm Scott Herzog.
And I'm Jim Arrowwood. And may Shai Hulud clear the path before you.
Yay! All right. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So for those of you in the chat room, we are going to take about a 5 to 10 minute break here, and just to get some notes in order for the listener feedback show, and maybe to get ourselves some water and some stuff to drink. Yeah. So we'll keep the chat room open and keep the recording going, but you'll see us you'll hear kind of a little bit of background of us organizing our show notes. So. Well, you're welcome to stay. All right.
Yeah, Ryan, we're reading Mentats, but it's probably going to be the last one we read unless Navigators is out. But it's the last one on our list of storybooks.
Right.
Then we have some other stuff.
Yep, absolutely.
We'll get there.
We will.
All right, we'll be back.
All right. So we do listener feedback. I'm going to have to get one. So I don't need that open. I don't need that open. We need the quotes open. We're going to start off with the quote. Right?
Yeah.
And quotes. So you drink? Are you good?
Yeah, I will need something to drink.
Do you want more coffee?
Yes, please. I'll come down and get some more.
Or do you want some diet soda or something?
I'm going to be good, but also I'm going to come get some water.
All right.
There's ice cream down there, too.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Put in a cup or something. Get that door open so that we let the air into that.
Oh, yeah, good point.
It gets warm when you're sitting there.
Yeah.
I thought that went better than I thought it might.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a little bit.
Yeah, but you can do it, so all right.
Yeah, don't mess with Jim. He is Mr. Smith in the Matrix. Yeah, we're going to be doing the Sisterhood and the Mentat books, but we're doing those at the end. Hopefully, the Navigators will be close to being finished. We'll see. We decided not to do them because not all of them were out at the time we were organizing the show. Ming Lord, I'm not sure exactly when our next recording will be. We typically talk about it toward the end of the show or tomorrow or the upcoming days. Typically, it's about a month between, so we'll be looking at, I'm guessing with the 4th of July, maybe the week after the 4th of July, but we're going to have to sit down and actually chat about that. Nothing's been solidified yet.
Yes, 1, 2.
I hear you.
Okay.
I'm getting my quotes in, Jim. I have a quote section at the top of the listener feedback notes.
Yeah, okay. I see that.
And I have a spot for... I can stop coughing here. I have a spot for you and David, just throw some quotes in.
Your quotes must be really emotional.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure what he's saying. The pictures on the wall.
Huh? What's he talking about?
Are you talking about the figures? Are you talking about Jim's house? Oh, the hat in the back. That hard hat, actually, the story beside the hard hat, I'm not a construction worker, but that's a hard hat there. And then you see some wires, and there's medals hanging up there from the various races, the marathons that I've completed. Above it are some figures from the Star Wars Clone Wars series. And then the hard hat is the hard hat my father used to wear to work. And he passed on about 2.5 years ago, so it hangs up there kind of as a remembrance of him. He was a huge sci-fi geek too, so it's kind of a remembrance of him more than anything. So, and then behind David's shoulder, you're seeing the very first marathon race number and medal that you kind of that I ran in. So that's what that is. All right, feedback. Let me see. I'm going to throw some feedback in. And I'll do the first feedback. And let's jump into mail. Did we got email feedback, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Couple emails.
Very good. Throw them in. Chapterhouse. Oh, Ryan. Yeah. So Ryan, we should just have he's in the chat room. We should just like pick him in.
Have him call in direct.
Yeah, do that.
Ryan, do you have a camera? Do you have a microphone? That's actually not a bad idea for a minute.
Well,
have him join the conversation.
I don't know. Yeah, he spent all this time typing it out. That's true. It was Jim. Next. No, I'm just putting in. I'm putting in like feedback and what you're going to be reading.
Where is it? Is it in the?
Should be in the Dune Saga podcast drive. This is from Roland. Yeah. Incidentally, my son and I are currently going through Clone Wars, the 5-6 season series that they did of the Clone Wars, and we're absolutely enjoying it. We watch an episode or two every so often, and it's quite a fun read. A watch.
I actually really liked that series. Towards the end, Took me a while to get into it, but once I did.
When did we do our last show? Did we do the Jason Steele one about? We didn't do the Jason. I don't think we did this one. Okay.
This one right here. This one actually a lot.
Okay, so. And this is from Jason Steele. All right. And I think that's it from the email. Maybe we just didn't. I don't think we did Anthony Jenkins either. Okay. Whoa, blast me out. Let's see what else we got here. William.
How many quotes are you guys doing?
I did 3.
I got 3.
All right, I will get one more so that you guys don't show me up.
Not likely to happen.
All right. Let me get red. Okay,
so Jim, I had ordered Avatar to discuss with you, and then like they sent me the wrong thing, so I had to send it back, and it took me forever to get it. By then you had already watched it, but I need to watch it so we can discuss it.
Okay.
Like we talked about, and then I think it might be fun while we're doing that to record a little thing on Tomorrowland as well.
Okay. Okay.
And then we can send those to that diner show that people listen to.
Maybe maybe that diner show would have us on there and join us on a discussion of Avatar, and
I'd be all for that. We could do that.
Yeah.
See, there you go.
There we go.
What do you guys got?
That face. Butter pecan ice cream.
I don't know. I have some chocolate swirl ice cream.
Oh, you schmucks. I'm on a freaking diet, and you're sitting there eating ice cream in front of me.
By the way, I meant to compliment you. I've been watching how much you've been riding bike, and kudos. Keep up the good work, man.
Oh, yeah. I decided to take the weekend off. Friday, I went for a ride, and I got about halfway through it, and I got all shaky and messed up, and I didn't even know if I was going to make it home.
Wow.
But I'd been riding like 11 miles every day, you know. Well,
Wow.
that's not bad. Not bad for a guy that's almost 60, right?
I think that's awesome.
But
That's very cool.
Tomorrow it'll be back on the routine. It's really windy out today. I wanted to go for a ride today. Chrissy and I are going to be doing a 4-H project. We're going to be riding about 16 miles.
Whoa.
Ooh.
But there's going to be lots of stops, and we're going to take pictures. We have to document things and take pictures, and she's going to put it all together for a 4-H thing. So
That's awesome.
So she's been doing all the rides with you too, right?
most of it, yeah. She didn't go Friday, but most of the time she does.
That's awesome that you guys do that together.
Yeah. Well, when she's with me, I don't push quite as hard.
But still,
Yeah.
11 miles is no joke.
No. It's all pretty flat, though. You know, there's not a whole lot of elevation or a lot of big hills to pull or anything.
But keep this goal in mind. Okay. I just discovered a week ago that Scott has a hot tub. So the goal is for you to ride your bike here, and then we'll record an episode while sitting in the hot tub. Chris will serve us our drinks, and we'll record the whole episode in the hot tub.
Trust me, you do not want to see me without a shirt on.
Well, same here, but whatever.
No, you don't want to see that. Trust me.
You don't know the power of the dog.
We'll just all stay submerged under the bubbles. Just our heads.
Just our mouths sticking up.
No. I know what this body looks like, and nobody is ever going to see me without proper clothing on.
You can't fight the power of the
Oh.
Wear a shirt. Fine. I think it needs to be done.
You don't know what you're asking.
Oh, I need to go back into Jim. It was in your timeline, wasn't it, that we had where Rick gave some of his comments on his thoughts on Chapterhouse?
It may have been.
Yeah, I need to go back to down your timeline.
Yeah. Let me look.
It's down quite a bit.
We went off your.
Yeah, this would be a long time ago.
We just went off your Xmas card list. Decadent so and so. Oh man, I think that would be a blast. What the the storm passes? I thought we were gonna get hit like crazy.
I was hoping.
But if you look this way, we have two windows where we can see out into farm fields. It's a nice view for when Scott's talking on and on and on, and I need something to look at.
Jeez.
Where is it? What is it? Do you have the date on that?
Well, no, I just remember the conversation happening, and I'm trying to think where you.
Oh, there was a ton of Twitter stuff.
Oh, well then.
I'll take a look at it.
Take a look at it.
Well, a lot of it was just me having a conversation with this one girl.
David, you're such a playboy.
Hey,
you know it.
Can't fight the spice.
Hey man, I'm not knocking it.
It's too bad you can't search your time. Can you search?
I don't
You
think
can, but I don't know how.
All right, I just need to find out. I think I passed it.
I don't remember my Twitter password.
That would be helpful.
Well, I had this thing where my tablet just all of a sudden refused to connect to any Wi-Fi, so I had to factory reset it. So all the apps are like back to the basics of life.
Okay. Phantom Menace, halfway through The Drowning. You read it before The Drowning? You had to.
You guys ever read? I'm sure you haven't, but
No, we don't read at all.
I know.
We hate reading.
Sorry I even brought it up.
Yeah.
Okay, here's one. Yeah, from Rick. Sorry, I announced that I was going to set aside reading Chapterhouse, and Rick says, sorry for what it's worth. I felt bad when I heard the circumstances of Herbert's life when he was writing it, but I just couldn't make it through. I got about halfway, I think.
Yeah, and there were some other comments there. Yeah, was that the one I commented on too?
Yes.
Yeah, well, if you can pull some of those comments.
And I'm looking, no comments there. And what's here?
Do you know what date that's at?
That would be, it says May 15.
Jeez.
And Rick chimed in on the 16th.
So May 16th.
Yeah, and that's all there is there. And then
That may
then
be.
yeah, and then on the 20th,
Well, okay, here we are. You
I
want
posted
Yeah, this
finishing
is the one.
Chapterhouse.
Yeah, this is the one that I was thinking of. But, well, I think that I'm just going to screenshot this and just pull a little bit out of his. I'm going to pull a little bit out of his conversation here regarding Chapterhouse.
Okay.
So, and we'll do that. And are you putting the Twitter stuff in then?
Mm-hmm.
Sort of. And I'll just talk about that too, since it kind of involves me. Are you pasting it in, or is it not? Do you just want to read it off of your iPad?
I'm taking screenshots. I'll just read it off of here.
Okay, very good.
I think that'll be easier.
All right, so we'll have David is Twitter Man, the new superhero in the Marvel Universe. Twitter Man. Dun, 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 dun. I have seen the stuff about Andy Serkis' character in the new Star Wars film. He's a villain. Oh. Andy Serkis is a great villain.
Yeah.
So.
Did they show a picture of him yet?
Not an outfit. They have him recording or doing something.
Like, Chris gave me my buddy Chris gave me a link to the synopsis of what we know of the plot from different things, like all put together in order. And he's like, "Oh, it's a little spoilery." And I tell you what, I said no. I think outside of trailers, I don't want to know. I don't want to dig. I don't want to delve too deep like the dwarves of Moira.
Yeah.
You know, I want it to be a pleasant surprise. I want to enjoy the movie for what it is, without like going in and be like, "Well, I was expecting this to turn out differently." So that's the angle I'm going to go with.
All right. Are we ready to go here?
Sure.
Jim, you need more time? Jim, you need more time?
No, I'm good.
All right.
My recorder's running.
All right. Mine is too. So if you want to give us a countdown, we can go.
All right. In 3, 2, 1.
Waiting for David to clear his throat.
Welcome to the Dune Saga podcast. I'm David Moulton.
I am Scott Herzog.
And I'm Jim Arrowwood.
And this is our listener feedback show
Yeah.
for Chapterhouse Dune.
That's right, Chapterhouse Dune, and we will be. So if you're in the chat room and you haven't heard the other feedback, we are getting that out. That'll be out this week. So that's the feedback for Heretics. So they'll come out. We'll have a lot of podcasts coming out in June. That'll be very cool. But, if you're tuning in, you're like, wow, how can I get involved in the feedback? There's a lot of ways. And, one of the things up front that we do got to say is a big, huge thank you to our Patreon people.
Yes.
I didn't look at it. I know we have a new Patreon subscriber this week, and I just totally forgot what his name is. But thank you for all of you that subscribe. You can go to patreon.com. If you want to support the podcast, just type in Dune Saga Podcast, and you'll get episodes. It's a great way to just support.
Yep. It's a monthly subscription if you choose to do it.
And you only get charged if you put out content.
Right. If we are slow in putting stuff up, there's no monthly subscription. So it's a good way to keep us in check, keep you make sure that you're only helping us if we're actually doing something worth what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, again, thank you. Thank you.
So we do appreciate those of you that do that. And if you want to get involved in other ways, obviously our Facebook.com/Dune Saga Podcast link will get you there. A lot of discussion happens there.
Yeah.
Contests, you know, they spring up, and David's just like giving away books in the kitchen sink. Yeah. We do that. Obviously, Twitter is a great place, and you can email us at dunesagapodcast@gmail.com. All great ways to get a hold of us.
Yeah.
And we do want to say a huge thank you to the chat room who is sticking with us tonight. We have a lot of people in the chat room, so welcome, chat room. And if you want to join us, we tried to give you a heads up. We'll decide on a date for our next recording, probably maybe not tonight, but like tomorrow in the upcoming days. And we will post that and put it on our Google page. Do we do that still?
Yeah, well, it's on the calendar.
It's on the calendar.
Usually,
and then
sometimes it's a little last minute, but
yeah. And so like we had planned on doing this earlier, and it switched because of some other things that was happening. But we'll give you at least a target for it.
Yeah.
And the next book that we are doing is going to be Hunters of Dune.
That's right.
Hunters of Dune, back into the Kevin J. Anderson and Brian Herbert universe.
It's action. Yep. It's the Michael Bay of the Dune books.
Lots of explosions and Shia LaBeouf and is in it, and
every character is played by Shia and Megan Fox.
Michael Wahlberg and Megan Fox playing Jessica.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm tuning into that one. Well, we pushed off quotes, so actually, this show does the listener feedback come out before the main show?
No, it comes out after.
Well, then, so we said, it's gonna be great. We were going to push off the quotes because we didn't have them quite together when we did the main show, but we have our quotes now. Yeah, and that's right, Jim. We have our quotes. He coughed them up.
Yep.
So. But Jim, do you want to start off with some of your quotes first?
Yeah, first of all, you need to know that I'm talking to you and recording at the same time, and when I cough or hack or do something like that, it doesn't go on the recording, so you don't have to point it out.
No, yeah, well, it's on my
recording. Now, if I pull out the loot, then you better be watching out. Okay.
Dude, loot's out, all bets are off.
Please pull the loot out, please.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, yes, I have 3 quotes to share with you, and the first one is, they're all epigraphs, by the way. We tend to become like the worst in those we oppose, and that's a Bene Gesserit coda. And so there's that one. The second one was, laws that suppress tend to strengthen what they prohibit. This is the fine point on which all the legal professions of history have based their job security. Another Bene Gesserit coda, and this is probably the one that struck home with me the most. Major flaws in government arise from a fear of making radical internal changes, even though a need is clearly seen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now that'll get anybody that knows me or lives in the area, they're going to call me a flaming radical liberal because I like that one. But so be it.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. I think about that in a person that I know whose job needs this. They know the change needs to be made. They're just hesitant to make it. So, totally true. Mm-hmm. How about you, David? How about your 3 quotes?
Okay, let's jump in. Now mine, we're all beginning of chapter book quotes, and I had, cling to any form of conservatism can be dangerous. Become too conservative, and you are unprepared for surprises. You cannot depend on luck. Logic is blind and often knows its own past. Logic is good for playing chess, but is often too slow for the needs of survival.
That's a good one.
I mean, Spock would argue, but we'll see.
But he's not in this universe.
He's not in this universe. All governments suffer from a recurring problem. Power attracts pathological personalities. It's not that power corrupts, but that it is magnetic to the corruptible. Such people have a tendency to become drunk on violence, a condition to which they are quickly addicted. All mine are political this time. Politics, the art of appearing candid and completely open while concealing as much as possible.
Good quotes. Yeah, some great quotes.
Uh-huh.
All right, I have 3. Actually, now 2 because David stole one of mine.
I do what I can.
Yeah, whatever. Jerk. Just remember, you're the one wearing a red shirt.
I know.
Yeah. All right. So here's mine, and I love this quote. This is from Dario Drade, and Chapterhouse says, "Confine yourself to observing, and you always miss the point of your life. The object can be stated this way: live the best life you can. Life is a game whose rules you learn if you leap into it and play it to the hilt. Otherwise, you're caught off balance, continually surprised by the shifting play. Non-players often whine and complain that luck always passes them by. They refuse to see that they can create some of their own luck." I like that one. And then as a teacher, I like this one. "Education is no substitute for intelligence. That elusive equality is defined only in part by puzzle-solving ability. It is the creation of new puzzles reflecting what your senses report that you round out the definition." So
There you go.
as a teacher, I like that quote.
Teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move into our feedback tonight. And so we have some great feedback. We're just going to start with some feedback. This comes in from Ryan White, who wrote in a pretty lengthy email, but we're going to read it here in its entirety, and then we're going to talk about it, guys, and see what we think about what he's saying. And he's been in the chat room. I don't know if he's still there. I think he is. So, Ryan, we're reading your email now. Thank you for writing in, by the way. And he says this. "Hey, guys, I just finished Chapterhouse Dune again, and boy, did I enjoy it. More than I have the other times I read it. More than likely because of your podcast and all the Dune discussion." You know, I just want to pause there. There is something about reading books, knowing you're going to discuss them,
That makes
that makes them a little bit better, a little bit more intriguing. So I agree with them there on that. Heretics of Dune is still my favorite time and time again. So he loved Heretics. It was also great to follow up the themes of it in Chapterhouse, but it definitely was a different book, resolving some things but bringing up larger questions and setting the stage for what would have been Dune 7. I preface what stuck out to me having already read both Kevin J. Anderson's and Brian Herbert's Dune 7, Sandworms/Hunters of Dunes. I can't remember how everything resolves, but I can see how Frank was moving the reader in that direction. You can also see how Kevin J. Anderson and Brian Herbert took a lot of that info and used it in 3 books they used to kick off the whole Dune universe. There were several references to machines and the Butlerian Jihad. They seem random in placement, but after many mentions, it can't be accident that they're there. The horrors were really interested in learning the immunity from new diseases from the witches, which references back to the plagues unleashed on humanity. Other things of interest, the shimmering net and the 2 face dancers screwing around with Duncan. The end of the book gives a lot of detail about their origins and how they got to be who they are. But being able to interact with Duncan like they do and wearing the personas of an elderly couple, we're getting a little bit spoilers here. Spoilers, just warning. That's okay, I'm going to still read it here. So Jim, just take your headphones off if you don't want to hear it. I'm confused as to whether they are also the ones of many faces or that's referring to another set of characters, which may also be the handlers, who are now releasing plagues against humanity. Wait, are either some Benetalaxu creation from the scattering, or they themselves are a different set of beings altogether who are now releasing plagues against humanity? Their futage are strange, are a strange thing also, and don't really seem to have a lot of power, but it seems like many seem to think that they're worth partnering with. Why? What do cat-like creatures who like to eat whores have to offer? That's funny the way he puts it. Unless there's a horde of them. That's also funny. Overall, I did like the book. We got to see more of the inner workings of the Bene Gesserit and the planet changed into a desert. So here are some of the things that he liked. Tam Bell and Dar antagonizing each other was great. Frank didn't overdo the necessary battle scenes in the book. The management style of the honor matres was explained along with how to trick them into wanting to become Bene Gesserits, the depths of things going on at an unconscious level, and how the Bene Gesserits were manipulating them. I wish the flow would have followed Heretics, which seemed almost more like the Miles Tag Adventure Guide to me. I like that. Here are the most annoying things to me in no certain order. The rabbi. Okay, he's the most annoying. All the dialogue with Rebecca makes me pray for the Cliff Notes version because it makes my head hurt like reading the Old Testament. Duncan and Marabella's conversations and sex life. Could more possibly be said between the two of them? All the dialogue with other memories. Seriously, who spends that much time in his or her own head? Can't they possibly think as much and in detail be left out? We know that they're wrestling with things, but I just wanted to read, not wrestle. Darn Marbella at the end was the final straw for me. The no-ship prison seemed like a prison for the reader also. It had to be boring for Duncan, but it was just as boring for me having everything set there with him and no end because the book ended with him still on it. I also disliked the waste of Sidetail in the book. He gets more action in Dune 7, but in Chapterhouse he was just an inmate who had much to offer but didn't even get to whistle Dixie. The Void and the Ballet Dancer artworks were kind of dumped out there to not go anywhere except to get a passing glimpse from Darwin. I was really glad to have Miles Tag back, even if it was a creepy 10-year-old version of him. But having his memories sexually induced was a bit much for me. Agrees with you, Jim. I'm sure you got into all the sex talk in the last podcast, but imprinting Miles just seems sick to me. And now I'm ready to tackle Dune 7 again. Thanks again for the podcast. So let's talk about some of the things that he's talking about here. Anything you want to tackle? David, why don't you go?
Okay. First, I want to say, and without revealing anything, but by also disassembling some possibly spoilericious things, the two people screwing around with Duncan in the Vision are not handlers, and they are not face dancers.
Ooh. See, now you're have me curious.
Yeah.
You have me curious.
So,
Jim, anything he's saying that sticks out to you here?
Oh yeah, the imprinting of Tag,
Yeah.
or the attempted imprinting of Tag. I was shocked at that episode of this book. Otherwise, yeah, he's pretty well right on with what I think. Also, I like the book pretty good, but there were some things that could be better.
I like his comment on the rabbi because I was so tired of. It's like he got the point across of the rabbi being reserved in like the first couple conversations with Rebecca, and then it just like kept coming back over and over again. It's like, all right.
Well, I grew up in a neighborhood where we had a lot of my friends were Jewish, and the rabbi was spot on.
Oh, really?
Exactly the way he was supposed to be. If he had been any less moralizing, I would have been shocked.
Yeah. I think part of what I liked about what he had to say that struck me was that you talked about how he wished the flow would have followed Heritage. And maybe what bothered me about, and the reason that Chapterhouse for me rated so low, was less to do with the content and more with coming out of Chapterhouse, which seemed to have a pretty solid story in its different veins, and coming into this where the story seemed kind of muddied at that point. Yes. Yeah. Did I reverse that? Yeah. So, anyways, but in Heretics, it was much clearer than it was in Chapterhouse. So.
Well, that beginning, like I mentioned in the main show, was just kind of confusing. Like the other books you get dumped into things, and somehow it works. Like you're like, oh, okay, you get back into things. It's been 30 years. Like
right. We figure it out along the way, and we're okay.
Right. This one, they're like, oh yeah, all these things happen, but it's only been like a year and a half, and it doesn't. And then they speed things up like over one chapter. Like it's like 8 years passes by, and it's just confusing.
Yeah. And I agree. The Void and the Ballet Dancer, it's a good throwback. The Void, at least, is a good throwback, but we are kind of left hanging. Mm-hmm. There's not much to it.
Mm-hmm. The chat room saying that most teenage boys would have liked some of the content.
But he's 10 years old. He's 10 years old. Like,
but even Mirabella and Duncan stuff, right?
Yeah, but yeah. Yeah, there's no way. Like, I don't know. Whatever.
That's right.
I'm speechless. I am speechless.
Yeah. Bridget Fifth Chris says, David and I know. We know. And we know.
Yeah. But Jim's like, yeah, but with others watching? I don't know. Voyeuristic tendencies or exhibition. But,
well, let's move on.
Well, one other thing. I did like what he said. No ship prison seemed like a prison for the reader as well. Yeah. Agreed. I wanted Duncan off that frickin' ship. And he at least escapes, but he's still on the frickin' ship.
Yeah. I mean, and is there an end to that? Who knows?
You do.
Yeah,
you do. So yeah, you and Bridge Rescue.
Well, he was looking for an escape at one point, wasn't he? But he
got an escape.
But I think that the escape he was looking for was exactly what happened, wasn't it? To take the no ship.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was intentional and purposeful. So.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, why don't you read the next piece of listener feedback that we have here?
Okay, we'll do. It's from Roland Smoker. It says, "Hi, David, Scott, and Jim. I did not enjoy this book as much as other Frank Herbert books. I felt the first 3/4 of the book was boring, and I found the last 1/4 confusing. I also didn't like the multiple cliffhangers at the end. There were more cliffhangers than any of Frank Herbert's other books. It seemed out of character for him. I give this book a 3 out of 5. So he agrees with you, Scott.
Yes.
I did want to point one thing out. It was interesting that we saw the mass destruction of planets from the other side. Earlier in the series, Paul Muad'Dib's jihad obliterated many planets, and now we see the Bene Gesserits fleeing from the honored Maters who are destroying their planets."
It's true.
It's true. How old was Shiana?
I thought she and Duncan were kind of the same age.
Well, she's like in her 20s, right?
Yeah, I thought she, in my mind, 23, 24.
And how old is Teg at time of
10?
10 or 11?
10 when he's banging the chick that woke his memories.
Okay. Hypothetically, 10 years down the road, not such a big deal.
No, absolutely not. If you
10 years down the road. But what I'm getting at is they said she was a cougar, and I was like, I don't know. I mean, 10 years down the road, I wouldn't have. Like if he was 20 and she's 30 something, I wouldn't say she was a cougar.
No.
Okay. I just got distracted by a comment in the chat. Sorry.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to Roland's.
So I guess any thoughts on what he's saying here? I mean, he agrees with me. So Roland and I are best buds now because we're the same number. But were there more cliffhangers in this book than other books?
Well, but it's not unusual for him to end books on a cliffhanger.
Right.
I mean, look at even Children of Dune, which is the end of a trilogy, ends kind of ambiguously.
Well, certainly Dune did. I mean.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, Dune Messiah did. You have him walking out in the desert, and that's it.
Right. I think Dune Messiah had just as many cliffhangers.
So maybe it's a middle of a book thing for Frank.
Yeah, I think that could be. Yeah. So.
And what do you think about the whole comment on the mass destruction of planets?
I hadn't thought of that, and I thought that was. I think that's actually a really cool perspective.
Yeah. Jim, thoughts?
Well, and then even taking that one step further, the jihad not only obliterated many planets, but it completely obliterated their style of government.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There was no more representation and no more chome and no more many things that were considered normal. It didn't even represent a republic anymore.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, David, why don't you read Jason Steele's email? So thank you, Jason, for writing in, and go ahead.
Hey guys, let me get better reading angle. Hey guys, just a random thought here. I was listening to God Emperor of Dune last night while making dinner, and there was a conversation between Maneo and Leto II that I found interesting, and it got me thinking. It kind of turned into a theory that I have as well. I have yet to read Heretics, Chapterhouse, Hunters, and Sandworms of Dune, so as I am not yet sure about this theory is true or just my lost side of my brain. As
referencing the book, the series.
The television series. Thinking of random theories. Hui Nori is Serena Butler as a Gola, created by the Ixians. Let me explain how I came to this theory. During a conversation between Leto and Maneo, Leto mentions how Hui makes me recall the Butlerian Jihad in a poignant way. She is the antithesis of all that's mechanical and non-human. Leto is pretty much describing Serena we knew from the Legends of Dune trilogy. We also know that the Ixians had the ability to create a Gola of Serena in the Machine Crusade to help move Iblis Jingo's plans to get humans back on track with the Jihad. They have created Golas to kill both Paul and Hui. Both Paul and Hui was created to bring Leto II down. And we have seen that they are now able to create Golas that have memories of their former lives, and Hui makes Leto think about the Jihad in different ways. That was something that was embedded in Serena's memories and to herself. We also know that the Ixians give different names to Golas. Hyatt, so as an example was Hyatt. So who is to say couldn't be the name given to a Gola by the Ixians so that Leto would not know that it was Serena Butler? With Hui being raised in a no chamber, this shielded Leto from knowing her past, so he would not know if it was Serena, even though he was able to pull all the thoughts and memories from everyone in his past. He would not be able to compare her past self and memories to his new vision, since he does not know Hui's past and was shielded from being able to view it. This no chamber could have shielded them from being able to detect that Hui was Serena created as a Gola. Another random point is Hui is talked about how she is gorgeous and able to make Leto II feel love again. Hui is basically able to make a giant sandworm feel love again. This is very similar to how Vorian Atreides was able to live and be raised by robots and hate humans, and then one woman, Serena, is able to change everything he believes by being honest with him and show him true compassion. These seem to be traits that both Serena and Hui have. Who is to say they aren't the same person, just a different version? Just a random theory that I thought I would share with you guys. Keep up the great work, and I'm glad I finally have caught up to where you guys are in the reading.
Wow. I can't say that I thought about that before.
Yeah.
Interesting theory, though, and I almost buy it the way he's explaining it.
Yeah, although I don't.
Robert Jordan would agree with you with the Wheel of Time, but
I don't think that it's right. But who am I to say if it's right or wrong? I mean, I think that Leto says that she reminds him of Serena. But I think that if she was a Gola, she would look so much like Serena, he would say, this is Serena, because he would have the memories of Serena in his past, wouldn't he?
Would he?
I can't remember. Her and Valerian have a kid? No, they don't. It's her and Harkonnen dude, what's his face?
Yeah, but, I'm not sure.
But like he would have memory of her, and plus they mentioned that she's a genetic opposite of the other guy, and they really drive that home. So, if anything, she's genetically made to be like that other guy, but a female and caring and all that other things, and he's not Serena. So,
well, remember we are talking about the Ben and Telak here. I mean, they're able to manipulate some stuff. We see that, and so if it is a Gola,
right,
there's nothing to say that the appearance would be exact.
Right.
I don't know, Jim. Your thoughts on this? What are you thinking about what Jason's saying here?
I think it's a great display of imagination and someone who is trying to fill in holes. But you know, whether it's valid or not, I don't know. I suppose it could be. It's darn plausible.
Ryan chimes in. He says he thought it was a female clone of Malky, and I think that I'm pretty sure that's what what they kind of came out and said, that she was Malky's clone. but just like the opposite of everything that he was.
Ming Lord said that Serena was created after Frank died, unless she was in like the mysterious notes, which could have been. I mean, we don't know everything that was made from the notes, and it could be. I mean, is Serena mentioned in the Dune books that Frank wrote?
I can't remember. I mean, the Butlers are, obviously, because of the Butlerian Jihad.
Right.
I don't remember if she's ever directly referenced.
I guess characters or so on, yeah. But that's a good point, too, that Serena would not have been created. And it could be what they did was they created Serena as an echo of Winori, and it could be they didn't mean to link it in, but we would have to ask Brian about that later on.
Yeah, I mean that's really good what you said, because I mean, when creating the new character, they would look back and say, oh, he mentioned that she reminds him of this person, so we have to model her off of this.
And it could be, so I don't know.
So, anyway.
All right, well, let's move on. So this next one is a thank you, Jason, for writing in and for sharing that theory, because that was pretty awesome. Made us think a little bit. Anthony Jenkins wrote in and said, "Hi guys, love the podcast. God Emperor is one of my all-time favorites. The only series I found that comes close to Dune is Asimov's Foundation series. Amazing. I would love it if you could all recommend some other great sci-fi books or movies to get stuck into. Thanks. Keep up the good work." All right, so he's asking for our book recommendations, a series to get sucked into. Do we feel like we're ready to talk about this?
Yeah. We talked about it on the last show, didn't we?
Yeah, so what series would you recommend he gets sucked into?
Would I?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Well, if I were to say, think towards the future.
Well, like not just for us, but for him. I didn't say like for us as a podcast, but maybe other series that...
Because we talked about Douglas Adams, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for when we branch out of Dune.
Yeah, that's down the road next year.
Yeah. But, okay, so if we're going to talk about science fiction series that you should branch off into, I'm going to take a step and say, I just read it this month. I reread the whole series. It's a bit different if you like science fiction, even if this isn't your type of medium, check it out. It's called Y, like the letter Y, The Last Man, and it's a graphic novel series, and it is by far it's just amazing. It surprised me incredibly. I expected something completely different before I read it years ago, and then rereading it, it still holds all of the greatness that it had the first time I read it. But it's about, in the same moment, all male mammals die at the exact same moment across the planet, except for one guy and his pet monkey. And you would think that it would be like Chapterhouse Dune and just like sex craved filled, but it like that, and that kept me from reading it for a long time. But it's not. It's he's got to stay a secret, and kind of he realizes that he's in trouble. So it's really an interesting read.
By the way, just a side note here. Bridget Reskier is mentioning in the chat room that there's controversy with the notes, and he has different theories on it. I would love if you could send us some of your theories in like an email, and we could talk about them, if you're willing to do that. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts about the notes and just have your perspective on that, Bridge. So Jim, how about for you, a series that you would recommend for Anthony?
Okay, I would recommend by Nathan Lowell, Trader's Tales from the Golden Age of the Solar Clippers.
Absolutely amazing.
Yes. You can't go wrong with that. And I think J.P. Harvey would agree with me.
Yeah. I think for me, there's two series that I would recommend, and one is going to be a very long read for you, and that is the Wheel of Time series. There's a lot of action earlier on, and then it slows down the middle, but what keeps me going is the characters in it. Characters are deep. And then the other one is the Terry Brooks series, a Sword of Shatner series. It's expansive and he continues to put out books in it, but I just find that the world, the story, and how it ties into our current world is absolutely amazing.
And is that the Sword of Truth stuff?
No, Sword of Shatner.
Okay.
or Shannara, depending who you talk to.
Is Terry Goodkind though?
No, Terry Brooks.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, Sword of Truth is Goodkind, but that's not what I'm talking about. So those are the two, but they aren't. They're both more fantasy based than they are science fiction.
Yeah, I have to be honest. Most of the books on my shelf outside of Dune that are like a longer series are probably fantasy based, which is weird because I love science fiction. I just don't.
The Foundation series is sitting behind you. I
Behind
bought
me.
the whole thing.
Wow.
So back there. So. All right. Well, so let's move on. Jim, you're up.
Okay, Scott. Before we go on, I need to ask you a question before
Shoot.
I go on. Are you recording a backup of this?
Yes. Yes, I always record it.
Okay, good, because I don't have a recording of the first 30 minutes.
All right. Very good.
So I just
All
want
right.
to make sure.
No,
All right,
that's fine.
now I am recording.
Why don't you count in?
Well, and if it sounds too different, I may
Okay.
just leave it in. Yep. So that
That's
cough will be there.
Yeah, now it will be, yeah. All right. Okay, so at any rate.
Do you remember everything? You have to re-record it all, Jim.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Okay, go ahead.
You type up the script. All right, so anyway, we have a feedback from William. It says, I know this comment is from an older show, but I've only recently discovered your podcast. I was absolutely glued to my headphones listening to this interview. You guys did a great job. It was fun, interesting, organic in that it didn't feel formatted. Mr. Herbert seems to enjoy it, and after a bit, felt like he was having a personal conversation with me about things I was deeply curious about. Not personal or as in weird, but personal like in he just opened up to you guys. Nice work. Looking forward to hearing more from William.
Thank you, William.
Yeah, thanks, William.
Yeah, that was a really good interview.
Yeah.
And we did talk about having him on again.
Yeah, he wants to come back on.
So we just need to figure out
it out.
how what we can do to make that happen.
Yeah, it's kind of been a mix of like where is the perfect place to fit it back in.
Right.
Like maybe now before we go into the other, I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Or maybe afterwards to kind of begin to talk about some of the things. And
Yeah, it's true.
changes. So.
Yeah.
I've thought often that I would like to talk to him now that we finished the Frank Herbert books.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. Well, maybe we can make that. Maybe we can make that happen.
Yeah, we'll have to look into it. See what's up.
We'll talk. We'll talk about lining. See if we can line up another interview with them. See too what Booksy is coming out. Maybe we can tie it into a book release.
Mhm.
That always is helpful if we can use it as kind of publicity and promotion.
They were giving away the first book of the Hellhole series at Comic-Con last year, and I picked it up, but I haven't read it yet.
Good.
So.
Oh, we have to. All right. Well, David, could you read?
All right.
The next one.
Gelasius Orientis writes in, Hi, Dune Saga podcast. Discovered your podcast several months ago and enjoyed listening to all of your episodes over a few weeks. Currently listening to the audiobook version of the recent Star Wars book, Tarkin, and it is quite Dune-esque in its descriptions of his upbringing on his home world and his participation in the machinations of the Empire. Highly recommended, and he gave a link to it. I have not read any Star Wars books except Tales from Jabba's Palace, which I love, and I read most of Tales from the Empire.
Yeah.
I would recommend reading Tales from Jabba's Palace because they worked some of those stories into special edition stuff. There's a whole story about the guy who takes care of what's that monster that Luke fights in the pit at Jabba's Palace?
Sarlacc.
No, not the Sarlacc. The Rancor.
The Rancor, yeah.
Yeah, and there's a scene in the special edition when he dies. There's like the handler's crying.
Yeah.
And there's the whole backstory is in this book. I don't know if I could get into the Star Wars books because they're not canon anymore.
Yeah, they're fun books. I read a bunch of the expanded universe, and Tarkin's one that I would like to read. I'm just not reading Star Wars right now. So, but I do hear what he's saying. So, all right. So, well, thank you for giving us a suggestion of that. And those of you, if anyone's reading Tarkin, if you can give us your thoughts on it, I would love to hear it.
Yeah.
So this is from Liam Carnes. I think the name I might be pronouncing it. a little bit differently. But hey, fellas, just became a Patreon. Thank you, and we want to thank you for becoming a patron. Catching up in the older content was listening to the Dune Messiah app. Just a thought on why the blind go to the desert. They are the drain in the tribe's resources and a risk in open sand, so something has to be done. They can't be killed for their water because, as we learn in the Children of Dune, there is a taboo on this because of Jakaruto. Walking into the desert isn't technically suicide, but as good as, and without the stigma. Sorry if this has already been covered. Loving the show, by the way. So the stigma of walking into the desert.
Yeah.
What do you think about what he's saying?
I think he's spot on. I think that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
They're not killing the person, but the person's choosing to remove themselves as a burden to the tribe. I'm not going to hold them back.
Yeah. Jim, any other thoughts?
No, same thing. Yeah, sounds good.
All right, and then one other thing, Dave's gonna share some thoughts that came up on Twitter, but this is a conversation we had with Rick from Starbase 66. Is he doing anything else?
Ray guns and go-go boots, and I think he is planning a new podcast about NASA and our space program.
Oh, that sounds cool.
That would be cool. Ooh,
yeah, I'm actually really interested.
You know what? You know when he launches it, so we can kind of pimp it on the show here a little bit.
Yeah, I will let you know. I'm not sure when it is. I haven't heard him say anything, but I think it'll be coming our way pretty soon.
Yeah.
Will we be able to watch the launch from a Bay Area?
Yeah. We know. So, anyways, we were in discussion when Jim announced that he was reading Chapterhouse, and he says that he couldn't finish Chapterhouse. And he said he felt bad when he heard the circumstances of Herbert's life when he was writing it. He just couldn't make it through. He got about halfway. And he just really struggled with it. And again, we talked a little bit about some of that meandering that happened and maybe the lack of clarity in it. I kind of was on board with you a little bit here, Rick, about the way that you encountered the book. Again, that's why I rated it a 3 and not any higher. But
yeah,
that's it.
I mean, he's got some strong opinions about Dune books. I get that.
Yeah.
When Rick doesn't like the book, he just cuts it off.
Yeah.
He did that with God Emperor. Although he did finish it when we were reading it, didn't he?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
So, Dave, you are the Twitter man.
I am the Twitter man. All right, let's head over to Twitter. We got a comment here from Matt Bradley, and it's at MattWBT. He says, I have a vintage Dune coloring book at Dune Saga Podcast because everyone wants to touch up Dr. Yui. And then he posted a picture for it. It's pretty classic looking. I mean, it's kind of funny how the merchandise that went along with that movie, it's from the movie.
Okay.
So it's kind of funny that they marketed towards kids. The movie, I would never let a kid, hit up in the movie. Also, Jarek at JRRAK says, major computer issues at work, didn't care because I had Dune Saga Podcast to listen to, among some other ones.
All right.
So, awesome. Switching over, the Neolistic kid says, hey, Kevin J. Anderson confirmed Navigators of Dune is progressing well. Looks like we'll see it soon.
That's good news for us. Cool. That means maybe we'll actually be able to do all the school books together?
I hope so. I hope
I wonder when the release date for that is.
Yeah.
You keep talking. I'm going to go look.
Yeah, no problem. A big Twitter conversation gal, Plucky Chicken, chimes in. She says, did you guys eventually address the awkward dinner party phenomenon in the Dune series? Because it's real. It's real. And, I had never really thought of it. It just seems like all the dinner parties get really awkward and something crazy happens, especially in the house books. I mean, I guess that's because we're talking about, like, what do you call them? Like upper echelon, upper society kind of things going on. But
aristocratic?
Aristocratic, thank you. Yes. But, yeah, it is kind of weird that that's like that. Do you think that Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson just wish that they were having dinner parties all the time? I think so.
Yeah, maybe.
Probably.
Maybe.
I'm nonchalant. You weren't even paying attention.
I wasn't. I'm looking up this. I'm looking at this, so maybe I'm like,
yeah, maybe. You got a good point there. Yeah. I'm saying
shut
stupid things.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with your stupidity here.
I got one final one. Plucky Chicken says, letting the Dude Soccer podcast allow me to sleep. It's not boring or anything. It's not boring. It's calming. So, to all of you who might be falling asleep at this one moment, sweet dreams, and we'll see you on the other side.
Jeez. Oh my God.
I feel like Delilah. So you hitting up some bad reviews?
No, I didn't do any bad reviews yet. You can go and look them up. So I'm just looking for release. It was this was announced in 2014 as when the Navigators of Dune. I'm glad it's progressing, but I don't see an actual release date. My guess, we're going to see that 2016.
Yeah, probably early, maybe.
Yeah. Time to get back to writing and editing, including editing the first draft. So the first draft is done, according to Kevin J. Anderson. He says the first draft is done for Navigators.
Yeah, I know that I saw Brian said he finished up his stuff and he was sending it over to Kevin.
And according to Kevin, it's done. So, whatever that means. So hopefully we'll see it soon. So hopefully we'll see it soon.
Jim and his loot are calming.
You know, we when we at the end of the episodes when we have Jim string up the loot, it just frankly it just almost soothes me to sleep. So.
All right, I'm gonna look up some
bad reviews.
Yeah, real quick.
Yeah, so I'm not finding anything as far as when Navigators comes out, but I can't imagine. So if they have first drafts done, I don't know how long by the time they edit through those drafts, how long it takes them to edit them, and then
I don't know.
You know, put a publishing date out of them. I just don't know.
Yeah.
So.
Meanwhile, it's just snorting cocaine off at naked ladies is holding up the book.
Jeez. Oh my gosh.
Doesn't really sound like the gentleman we talked to.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. No.
Reading details.
So, Sisterhood.
Wow. I'll just say this. 33% of people gave this a 4-star rating. 31% gave it a 5-star. 25% gave it a 3-star. 7% gave it a 2, and 1% gave it a 1.
Wow, so
people like this book.
Wow.
Let me see. I'm going to filter on some.
So we don't have much in the way of bad.
Yeah.
That's people just didn't read it. That's why. I'm just kidding.
One bad review of 1 star says this book is so far out there that is ridiculous. That's my review for Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh, don't get us started in that discussion.
Yeah. Thank goodness it's over. Absolute waste of time. If I could give this negative 5-star rating, it would come closer to describing how I feel about this last book and the series overall. It's kind of crazy. I'm going to actually go to middle ground reviews.
Yeah, go to middle ground. That'd be great.
Yeah. See what some of these say. Okay, here's one.
Go ahead.
3.0 to 3.5 stars. After loving the first 5 books of the series, I was a little disappointed in the last installment of the Dune Chronicles by Frank Herbert. While I have always been a big fan of Herbert's heavy use of dialogue and philosophical arguments to advance the themes of the stories, I thought that its use in this volume was not as crisp and felt a bit too plodding. That said, I did like it, and it's certainly not a bad book, but it does suffer in comparison to the previous installments. I have to decide if I'm simply going to sample any of the subsequent novels or not. There was a 3 stars by Stephen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's, basically it seems like a lot of the middle of the roads, they're just like it didn't live up to what it said. I'm not really seeing anything profound here going on in the review section. on Goodreads. So, what do you got?
Nothing. There's nothing. There's no information on this book.
Okay.
So they're working on it. 2014. They're saying they're working on it. Things are going well. First drafts are done.
That's awesome.
But so we can probably expect it end of this year, beginning of next.
Beginning of next year, maybe.
Maybe in time for us to wrap it up.
We can just finish it for them.
We could. You know, the other thing we could do is when we get out of the series, if we see that we have these 3 books left, and maybe take a break to do like Road to Dune or something, we could just throw one of them in.
Yeah. Actually, that's good. Yeah. Well, we'll see what we can find out. So, yeah.
All right. Well, I think it's about it.
Yeah. So once again, if you want to be part of the conversation that is continuing on many fronts, the places that you can hit us up are at facebook.com/DuneSagaPodcast. We've got our website, DuneSagaPodcast.com, where you can comment on episodes there. There's our Twitter, which is getting more and more action, and that's at DuneSagaPodcast. You can always email us for your long-winded, deeper thought things, and that's DuneSagaPodcast@gmail.com. We've got our call-in line where you can either send in a voicemail with your email, or you can call.
Oh, now you're going to ask me to look it up real quick. Sorry.
Right.
1-260-577-CHAT. 1-260-577-2428.
Yeah. So we'd love to hear you. No comment too big, too small. So
yeah, we read some lengthy ones.
Yeah, and we'll be heading into Hunters of Dune next.
Yeah, let us know what you think. Hunters
of Dune.
Yeah.
I mean,
probably sometime toward the beginning of July we'll do that.
Yeah.
So
for the Dune Saga podcast, I'm David Moulton.
I'm Scott Herzog.
And I'm Jim Arrowwood. And may Shai Hulud clear the path before you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And we want to take a special thanks to the chat room for those of you that joined us. It was a consistent tonight, a very large crowd considering the last minute. Well, it wasn't really last minute. I guess we did talk about it a little bit. We appreciate all you guys joining us in the chat room, and we'd love to have you joining us again. We will let you know when it's out and when it's up. So
definitely makes it even more enjoyable to do. On our end,
definitely more interactive.
Yeah.
So
I think, and I'm not 100% positive of this, but I'm pretty sure Jim promised to play the lute the next time before the next show.
Yeah. So I mean,
for the people in the chat room,
seriously, if you want to come out,
that's probably that right there is reason enough to show up for the chat room next time.
Now this is assuming that all you Patreon supporters get in there and actually. Just support us, and we raise enough money for Jim to buy a lute. Then we'll be good. If we get his hands on a lute, he will. He promises to diligently play it while he's riding his bike.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Well, anyway.
Well, Jim, I'm glad you were able to kind of jump in here as we were. At kind of last minute, I guess.
Can you take us off broadcasting?
You want me to?
Yeah. So
yep. All right. Well, so chat room, we'll be chatting with you later.